Digital burnout is a real, and if you clicked on this video, you're probably feeling it. That mental fog from constantly switching tabs, the emotional drain of endless notifications, and that weird anxiety that you get when you can't remember if you sent that text or just thought about sending that text. I hit rock bottom with this last year when I realized my attention span had basically disappeared. But then I started strategically reintroducing analog tools into my workflow, and everything changed. Not an overstatement. I'm not talking about going full cottage in the woods here. I still use and love my digital tools, but adding specific, tailored analog elements has transformed my thinking, my focus, and even my happiness. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through the science of why our brains crave physical tools, show you the specific analog items that make the biggest difference, and give you a practical framework for creating your own hybrid digital analog system that works for your busy life. First, we have to understand some context. For thousands of years, our brains evolved in a physical world where we interacted with tangible objects that lived in a time and space. And despite what tech companies want us to believe, our neural wiring hasn't caught up with our digital devices yet. For one thing, we still work best when our attention is focused, and digital tools are basically designed to pull your focus in 1,000 different directions. How many times have you opened up your phone just to do like one simple thing, like check a text message or write down a note, only to find yourself like 20 minutes later on YouTube or Instagram watching videos of cats riding Roombas? Our devices are literally designed to fragment our attention, and they do it very, very well. Studies actually show that we're interrupted or switch tasks every 3 to 5 minutes when working on digital devices, which is just garbage for getting things done. But this isn't about like rejecting technology entirely. It's just about understanding when analog tools might serve you better. So let's take a look at what those tools might be. By the way, peep the fountain pen. It's baby's first. It is a Kaweco Sport. Major shouts out to Charlotte and Nicole from Yoseka Stationery, who helped me pick it out. I'm really loving it so far. First up, the Humble Notebook. I always have at least 2 types of notebooks. First, a pocket notebook for capturing random thoughts, and a larger notebook for more complex thinking and brain dumps. And really, by talking about notebooks here, I'm actually talking about the essential role writing by hand has in memory retention. This is a new notebook. You guys may be familiar with this cover from when I had my common planner in there, this notebook, which I used as a thinking book for a long time, but I now have a new one as I have filled that one up. You can see I'm doing my same old shenanigans plotting out fan fiction. But the point I want to make here is that when we physically form letters on paper, we activate multiple brain functions simultaneously. We connect motor function, which is the physical act of moving a pen across a paper, with our memory, especially when we write down information. We also even connect spatial reasoning because we can move all over the page. We can write something down over here, down there, and all of these things, motor function, memory, and spatial reasoning, combine in ways typing simply cannot match. This makes the first kind of notebook I carry with me so dang important. This is my pocket notebook, which I use to capture random thoughts. I carry it with me literally everywhere I go. It also functions as a wallet. This back pocket is full of cards and cash, just in case you want to steal from me. But I also do use Apple Notes when I am like without this notebook, or when it's easier sometimes. I just pull out my phone and use Apple Notes on my iPhone to capture thoughts. But I notice a real meaningful difference when I capture a thought in my physical notebook versus when I'm typing it out with my thumbs. When I type it, I forget it almost always. Immediately, like right at once. But I'm much better at remembering when I write in the pocket notebook, and the things in here are always getting processed, even when I forget to process my digital capture methods. So to give you some examples, I'm making to-do lists, I'm writing out drafts of things, I'm doing journaling in here, I'm writing out passages for fan fiction, I'm writing out trips my parents are planning. The things in here I find I remember much, much better because of that mind-body connection that actually handwriting things out gives you. A pocket notebook you obviously want to be small and sturdy enough to be thrown into any pocket or purse that you own, but a notebook for complex thinking is really where the magic happens. But before we talk about what I do with the rest of my notebooks, I want to jump in and talk about today's sponsor. Speaking of analog tools that engage your hands and your brain, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Craftsy. Craftsy is your online resource for all things creative. Over 2,000 hands-on classes in everything from knitting to quilting to painting and cake decorating. What I love about this is that it's the perfect complement to what we've been talking about, using your hands to create something physical and real. I've been checking out some of their courses, and there's something so satisfying about learning a skill that actually results in something you can touch and hold. These are the kinds of analog activities that put you in that focused flow state that we all crave. Classes are broken down into easy to follow lessons, and they're taught by expert instructors, so you are in good hands. As a member, you also get unlimited access to thousands of classes and can connect with fellow makers in the Craftsy community. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49. This offer is valid for new members only, but honestly, that's so affordable you can't afford not to buy it. Thanks to Craftsy for sponsoring today's video. Now back to building your analog toolkit. So where analog writing is really powerful is for thinking. As I mentioned previously, writing slows down our brain and forces us to carefully consider the words that we put down. The brain activity involved in translating what we are thinking down through our arms and into our own words on the paper is truly unmatched for thinking through problems. I have shown these pages a ton on my channel before because they are truly some of the best examples of this spatial thinking, this translation process that happens. I'm going all sorts of directions with this graph here. This is something that's not possible if I was just taking notes about characters in a story that I'm writing in a digital notes app where everything is linear. I'm allowed to go in all sorts of different directions. But I also have a recent example where I'm not actually working on a writing project, but I'm journaling myself through a problem I'm having. I just made a video about this. Either it just went up or it will just go up. But this was me journaling myself through a problem I was having because I was basically confronting a lot of fear that I was having over starting a project for work. So I was journaling myself through it. And then because the magic of writing on paper, you have all this extra space, this big space to think broadly, I was able to pull out little sections and use a different color pen and draw arrows to talk myself through the problem. So I'm journaling about the problem and then I'm talking back to myself saying, well, if you think about it this way, it's actually like this. It actually doesn't have to be so scary. So in both of these examples, you can see how I'm using things that paper just exceeds tremendously at, which is giving you freedom for spatial movement, giving you the freedom to write in all sorts of different directions, use different colored tools to enhance your experience, all of that kind of thing. But also, as I said before, these words that I'm shaping on the paper are physically slower than words I would be typing out with my thumbs. I think we all know by now the studies that say that students who take lecture notes by hand are shown to understand concepts better than those who type, even though typers are often recording more information. But that act of slowness, of translation, really, really helps us think. Now, I have a whole video about thinking on paper, which I will leave linked up in the cards, but I do want to give you some practical tips if you are looking for something like a thinking notebook, a notebook to carry around with you that will enable you to have this ability to think on paper. What you want is a bigger notebook. A small notebook can work, and maybe your ideas can all fit in just this tiny spread. Maybe that's all you need to do really complex thinking. But I find that without a doubt, a larger notebook, at least B6 or larger, is really, really, really helpful. So for example, both of these are B6, and just look at the amount of space that provides. That's so much more space. Here's another example of what I'm talking about, and there's no way I could fit all of this thought process into this tiny spread. Now, I do use this sometimes when I'm in a pinch. But when I really want to think through a problem, I'm working through a bigger notebook because I like having all this space to truly get everything out on one spread. And finally, I would not be me if I did not recommend a paper planner over a digital one. A paper planner is just as much of a thinking tool as a blank notebook, only you are thinking through the concept of time itself when you are using a planner. This is my Hobonichi cousin. I use it every single day, honestly, primarily because of this daily page, which is an excellent feature. As you can see, lots of wide room to think through the daily problems that come up at work, or in my personal life. I am almost never hurting for a spare additional piece of paper for the things that come up on a day-to-day level, which is amazing. Here are some examples of pages where I'm working through my schedule, working through my priorities, working through like questions I have for people. What else can I share? This is a page where what I really needed to do was document my thinking on a book that I was reading, and so I did that. But overall, what I'm doing here is I'm chronicling time and I'm working through time. I also do this in my weeklies in a big way. I'm chronicling things I have to do on future dates before it happens. Honestly, my whole channel is basically planner content, so if you want more paper planner content, please head there. But I will say this, digital calendars are really good for coordination. I definitely use them to the fullest when I'm recording my appointments or booking frequently changing meeting times, especially for work. My meetings change all the time. But when I am planning, as in planning and mapping out projects, here, I'll show you another example. This is my manager's notebook, another planner that I use for planning. Here is a month of video projects that I was planning out for my day job where I manage content creation for a university. I was mapping all this out on paper, and when I'm planning on paper, there's just something about mapping out my time on paper that gives me a different feeling than mapping it out in digital. But I still do often map it out in digital as a secondary option, because once I can fully understand it on paper, then I move it over to a digital calendar, and then that digital calendar is much more easy to share. So do your thinking here, and then if you need to share it, then make it a digital project. So physical books also deserve their own category of analog tools, and this may be a controversial one because I know how people love their e-readers, but studies have in fact found that readers comprehend more when reading in print versus digital. Again, I think there's something about the spatial nature of a book, knowing you're halfway through because you can physically feel that you're halfway through. That sort of helps our brains organize information. Also, having something you can touch engages more of your senses. You know, this book has a feel. It's soft, it's bendy, it's old. I think this copy is from 72. So it's a really old and textured book. It has a feeling. The pages have a specific feeling when I'm turning them, when I'm moving through them. It also even has a smell, the way that old books have smells. This multi-sensory learning can create more neural pathways, which again means better retention. So I recommend you have books physically, read them physically, as opposed to getting them on an e-reader. I am also a big advocate of writing in books and then translating those book notes out into physical notes. I write in my books all the time. You can see all the pencil in here. I write little summaries. I underline passages that I like. I map out, the stages of an author's argument. I rephrase. I don't really feel like I'm fully reading a book unless I'm writing in it, because when I'm writing in it, I feel like I'm actually engaging with the text. I'm actually coming to the book and putting my own insight or my own feedback inside it. Obviously, you may not be able to do this if you're like renting books from a library or borrowing a book from a friend. But if you own your own books, I highly recommend writing in them because you get that physical relationship with the text that just reading it on a screen and then highlighting using like the Kindle highlight tool does not give you. However, if you are reading a book that is not yours that you can't write in, I do recommend, this is David Allen's Getting Things Done. I do actually own this book and I have written in it quite a bit. But I also kept a reading notebook alongside it where I wrote out key quotes, and then I wrote my thoughts on those quotes on the side in different colored pen, again, taking advantage of that way that paper products enable you to use different colors and use different spatial understanding and draw arrows and things like that. So what you can do is you can just read your book, if it's not a book that you can write in, side by side with a notebook and copy things over and then have that writing experience as well. Takes a little bit more time, but you can definitely do that. Other tangible learning tools like flashcards or even printed references are really helpful. When I read a book these days, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to write a little summary on a note card, and then I carry this note card in with me as sort of a bookmark in the book. I just skimmed this entire book, wrote a summary based on what I thought it was about, and now I'm actually fully going through and reading it and keeping this summary in mind. Again, just really, really helps you because you're getting that cognitive benefit of writing, and this helps you think, and then you're reading, which is growing your thinking ability, and then you're writing again about it, and it's just a feedback loop. A feedback loop with haptic feedback, baby. A feedback loop in physical form. The last thing I'll say about reading is that reading physical media and taking physical notes, whether that be on a note card like I just showed you, or in sort of like a commonplace book or whatever you want to call the notes that you're taking, doing these things physically is so much better for our distraction. If I read on my computer or on my phone and then I get a notification, it is all over for me. My focus is trashed. Even if I don't get a notification, but I pull up my phone to look up a word or make a note, then I'm at greater risk of getting distracted because I can so easily switch from taking a note to opening Instagram or opening my messages or doing whatever is going to distract me from building my focus through reading. So I'm a physical book reader basically through and through. You will not catch me with an e-reader, even though I do have an e-reader, but you typically won't see. It's like out of battery and it's buried under a stack of something. I don't even know where. I love a physical book. Now let's talk really quickly about analog tools for play and connection, because I've talked a lot about productivity, about thinking, and that is a really important practice to me, but also when we play, when we want to have fun, how can we integrate analog tools into that area of our life? And what I actually really want to talk about here is the flow state. I think we are all really familiar with the flow state. It's that pure, undistracted, focused state of mind that you get in when you are really into a project or a task. And it feels amazing because it feels like time completely falls away and you're just in that task until it is completed. Now, the way most people talk about flow state is in conjunction with productivity, but I actually think flow state is what we should be seeking when we seek to play. For me, if I don't have a good little flow state going during a weekend where I'm just working on a passion project, I don't feel relaxed at the end of that weekend. And I have had weekends where I just spend every day on my phone scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, or every day on YouTube watching somebody else create the things I wanted to create. And I hate those weekends. But I love the weekends where I get into flow state doing something that I care about in an undistracted way. And this is because flow state puts our brain into a space where it is heightened, curious, active, attentive, experimental, and again, specifically not distracted. So we want to get ourselves into a state with our play where nobody else owns our time. We want to be in that flow state where nobody else is controlling our behavior. Nobody's pulling us away from our tasks. No notifications are pulling us away from our tasks or anything like that. We get to control our own state, and it feels really, really good. Because distractions are 100% more present when you're using digital tools. I recommend developing some ways to play and relax that are purely physical. So for example, you could spend time taking pictures on your iPhone, or you could eliminate distractions and get into a flow state with a film camera. These are really fun and they are still around. Getting them developed is always a laugh because you don't really know what you're capturing. But even if you don't want to use a disposable film camera, if you're interested in photography, if you've liked what you've experimented with so far, looking into investing in an actual camera can be a really, really rewarding way to deepen that hobby in an analog practice. You could make some art in Photoshop, or you could get off your computer and make some collage art or draw instead. I've always been really artsy. I was really artsy as a kid. I like to draw a lot, and I've recently reconnected with that because my neighbor likes to create these little tarot cards out of collage materials. They have a sticker book and a bunch of pens and some nice paper and cardstock, and so they let me join them one recent day, and I made these 3 tarot cards, and the way it reignited my interest in creativity was insane. So I made the 7 of Swords, the High Priestess, and Judgment. One of my personal favorite methods is also actually using a deck of cards. I kind of collect decks of cards. I have a bunch of them. I basically always have a deck of cards on me. And I know a handful of solo games for when I want to just turn off screens and be in my own head for a while. Basically, start experimenting with the analog version of the hobby, whatever hobby you have that may be digital. To break away from it, start experimenting with the analog version and just see how it changes your relationship with that creative flow state that I was mentioning earlier. Okay, let's talk about some practical advice. I'm not suggesting you abandon your digital tools entirely. They are amazing for certain tasks, especially storing and collaborating with people. I use those tools every day. I use my digital calendar. I use Google Docs. I do use digital tools. But the key is intentional choice, because digital tools are so easy and so accessible that we can just fall into this trap of getting addicted to our devices without recognizing and building in important analog tools where we're using our hands, like our Stone Age brain really likes to, right? So here's my framework for deciding when to go analog versus digital. You want to choose analog tools when you're doing creative thinking or brainstorming. You want to choose digital when you need to process a huge amount of information that just one page or a collection of pages cannot hold. You want to choose analog when you need deep focus without distractions, but you want to choose digital when collaboration is essential, especially if that collaboration is happening remotely or asynchronously. You want to choose analog when you're learning something new, when you want to retain the information you're learning because that mind-body connection is going to be so valuable. But you want to choose digital when you need a powerful search functionality to access all of your past notes. Search functions are unmatched on digital. I will say that for sure. However, you do want to choose analog when you're trying to connect with others. And I'm talking about a form of analog experience that I didn't really cover in this video, like having coffee with a friend or actually getting lunch when you tell someone you're going to get lunch with them. You want to try to meet up in person because that, again, mind-body connection, seeing someone, getting their body language, that brings connection like nothing else. We are hardwired to prefer that type of connection. So choose analog when you want to connect with other people. However, you want to choose digital when you need to integrate with other systems. So specifically within a work or project framework, when you need to connect all of your systems together and you want to link between them in a really easy way that analog cannot do, choose digital. That's totally okay. Digital is also great when speed is the priority, when you want to move really, really fast on something. Digital can accomplish that in a way that does sacrifice some memory retention and some of those things, but speed is really, really accessible to you when you're using digital. However, you want to choose analog when you want to reduce your screen time and reduce those distractions. Staying focused, connecting in a deeper level with your creativity or your thinking or your brainstorming, connecting with other people in a real environment, learning something new that you want to remember. All of those are great reasons to choose analog tools, no matter if it's just this notebook and pen that I have as a demonstration tool or any of the other tools I've shown you today or anything else you can imagine. Digital obviously has a lot of benefits, but it also has a lot of cons. So choose digital very intentionally and very carefully. Things like speed, powerful search, integration, processing large amounts of data, collaborating across, countries and states and offices. Digital is really helpful for you, but just remember those categories, okay? My personal philosophy has always been paper for thinking, digital for storage, because once I have my notes in a digital system, I'm able to search through them and connect them and link across notes and things like that. But when I'm writing on paper, that mind-body connection is just unmatched. There's nothing else like it. So I hope you can see how the most powerful approach is actually combining the two intentionally. For example, I brainstorm my video ideas in my notebook, outline them on paper, but then I often create a final script digitally for ease of editing and then sharing with my producer. So you can use both in the same workflow, in the same system, in the same life. We all live in a hybrid world. Like there's no way we can get away from technology at this point. Not in a world where most concert venues don't even accept physical tickets anymore. But to make a hybrid approach work, establish regular practices that connects the components, set a weekly appointment with yourself to transfer items between systems, tasks on your task manager, notes in your notes section, appointments in your calendar, whatever that looks like. And then make sure you are spending a good amount of time, in play with your analog hobbies, in some sort of focus where you are getting out all of your thoughts on paper without digital distractions. Reading in a book so that you can more fulsomely engage with the text. Just try it. I promise it will not steer you wrong. So there you have it, a practical toolkit for bringing analog elements back into your digital life. Remember, this is not about rejecting technology. It's about using the right tool for the right job. Our brains evolved for physical interaction, and sometimes the best way forward is to step back into analog methods. By strategically incorporating analog tools into your life, you can enhance your thinking, reduce distraction, and create more meaningful relationships with your priorities. I would love to know which of these methods you might incorporate into your life, which ones you're already using. Let me know down in the comments below. If you liked this video, please also check out my video on how to think on paper right over here next to my head. Thanks so much for watching, for being subscribed, for being awesome. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.